Once upon a time, the stereotype of the wealthy Russian seeking to escape the scourge of their own country was somebody with a truckload of American dollars backing up to a pricey building on Park Avenue or a realtor in South Beach, then just unloading with the words "buy everything" being screamed for everybody to hear. This was when the Russian elite were using American real estate as a personal safety deposit box to park their money away from corrupt bankers in the hands of a corrupt dictator. Well, Vladimir Putin may have perfected his poker face, but there are cracks in Mother Russia's facade these days. Newsmax TV's John Bachman peers behind the front and gives us the details. John?
Yeah, Ned, as you mentioned, there's an interesting historical correlation between the real estate market and the shelf life of dictators. This happened with the Soviet Empire before it was collapsing, but apparently not on the scale of what we're seeing right now. But first, Ed, let's update everybody on the latest on this new peace deal. Vladimir Putin and Ukraine's president, Petro Poroshenko, sat down for something like 16 hours last night. They did agree to stop the fighting by this Sunday, but there is a key disagreement here that could jeopardize everything. That has to do with the amount of autonomy the eastern portion of Ukraine will have. Now, since the deal was announced, the Russian currency and other Russian assets have started to rise ever so slightly, but the EU and UK have been standing by those sanctions currently in place. But now we are starting to hear, according to John Kerry, that the U.S. might be willing to consider rolling back some of those sanctions when the peace agreements from last September and this new one just announced are fully implemented. The U.S. has been mostly on the sidelines while the deal was worked out, though. But this week, Vice President Joe Biden directly called out Moscow for its involvement in the conflict.
Russia continues to escalate the conflict by sending mercenaries and tanks, and as we euphemistically say in the United States, little green men without patches in. We're very sophisticated special operations soldiers.
Another thing Biden said is that Russia would not be allowed to redraw the map of Europe. So here we are. Both Putin's aggression and nationalism have done wonders for his approval ratings at home. But as you mentioned, Ed, there might be some indications that his inner circle here, those oligarchs, might be eyeing the exits even after this peace deal. We found a very interesting article on foreignpolicy.com that points out more and more Russians are buying these luxury apartments in New York, London too. And according to The Nation, since 2008, around 1/3 of all condo sales in new Manhattan developments have gone to international buyers, the majority of whom are Russian. And this shows that although things might be well for the Russian elite right now, those families are about to get burned if things do go south. At least in Russia, they have these foreign assets they can hold on to. Now, at least on the onset, we mentioned this happening before the fall of the Soviet Empire, but it also happened in the late 1970s with Iran, the Iranians who were loyal to the Shah. Some of that country's elites had amassed extreme wealth thanks to a spike in oil prices over the course of one single year from 1973 to 1974, and many of that nation's wealthy families also purchased homes overseas as the Islamic Revolution started to ramp up, and their new homes gave them a way out of their own country, and they took it once the Ayatollah took over. Now back to these Russian buyers, the increase in this type of activity compared to what we saw back in the late 1980s or even just 10 years ago. Now in 2004, the State Department issued more than 67,000 visas in the Moscow consulate alone. In 2013, Ed, that number has now skyrocketed to nearly 200,000. So some similarities here to what we saw before the fall of the Soviet Empire and even what we saw when there are a lot of folks who were investing in American real estate when the real estate market was depressed. But there does seem to be some indication that a lot of these oligarchs are trying to find an exit door.
Well, let's add a few more things here to the whole issue about coming here to America and the real estate here. The ruble worth about 1 U.S. cent as of January the 20th. Right. That's a 40% less value than it was a year ago. You have buyers now who are down more than 10 or 15% in South Florida and in other areas as well. They are no longer lining up to buy on Park Avenue. And as a matter of fact, many real estate investors there are turning down the Russian money now, and even when they see it coming, because they're afraid of what's going to happen. Oh yeah, and by the way, in Saint-Tropez, the demand for luxury villa rentals is down 20% from a year ago thanks to the Russian dollar.
So it's a buyer's market, Ed.
There you go. That's what it is all around, and that's what we were trying to point out. It's simply because that Russian dollar is not making its rounds in the real estate anymore these days. John, thanks so much.
My pleasure, Ed.
All right. Second hour here on MidPoint. A girl's best friend can now be grown instead of found. Why is it America is more of a loser than a winner when it comes to war? And Cityscape visits the snowiest place in the world. And I think we do mean the world right now. It certainly seems so at this moment. If you're living in the Northeast, you know exactly where I'm talking about, and a chance to see what the people are going through there. That's coming up right here on the program that questions everything. This is MidPoint.